So that's a question that says, just to clarify, we should read the dua for the bathroom when we enter the general bathroom or the toilet area. And same thing for exiting dua. So what we have talked about is that according to our residential bathroom, that facility is not all toilet area. So we are going to separate it into, and it's an imaginary separation into three facilities. Facility number one is your washing facility. This is where you make your wudu, which is the sink area. That's not a toilet area. So this area you are allowed to say dhikr, Quran, Bismillah, and you need to say Bismillah before you start your wudu. Then you have the bathing facility. That is where you take your shower or your bath. That's also not a toilet area. So those two are considered to be uh, as any other regular rooms in your house. So you can say dhikr, you can say Bismillah, you can say dua, you can recite while taking a shower, you can say dhikr, whatever, no problem, inshallah. Now, the third facility is the toilet area, and that's what we are going to consider it, the bathroom, the toilet area. This is where you enter with your left foot, but before your body enters, you're just, stepping your left foot about to step in. This is where you say, Bismillah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubthi wal-khaba'ith. So you're saying the dhikr before your body enters the facility of the toilet. Then as you enter, you refrain from dhikr, from any Quran, from any talk that pertains to Sharia or to Islamic teachings or what have you. And we should not in general have the etiquettes or any habit of talking, answering phones, talking, whatever. We should not. Not that it's haram, but it's not from the etiquettes of the toilet area, the bathroom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us. Can we talk? Yes, but for I would say necessities. Somebody called you. You want to tell somebody from your household, like, please turn off the oven or do something, or, whatever is necessary, then it is okay, inshallah. As you exit out, so your body is still inside the toilet area, you don't say anything. You exit with your right foot, and your body, as your body now is mainly out, you say, غفرانك, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, forgive us. So that's inshallah ta'ala in a nutshell what we discussed when it comes to the bathroom facility. Question number 2, regarding preferability of making wudu after eating food touched by fire. Okay, yes, that we talked about. Does this mean the food is actually touched by the fire, or does it mean cooked? No, it actually means touched by the fire. It's more of a like barbecue. So it's not just a regular cooking that is cooked on fire, no. But actually fire directly cooked the meat. So it's more of the barbecue. Like what we go through right now. That's just more preferable. It's not like a must or anything. The other question is, I guess this question is for Kashif or for Radwa, either or. Anyone that, inshallah, I think that's for Radwa. So Radwa, you can, inshallah, take this question for you, and you can answer, bi'idhnillah. Either you send a text or you can just answer directly, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. So the question is it possible to combine all the slides so far from all the different PowerPoints and put it in one? Absolutely, yeah. So inshallah, I can do that for easier access for anybody who wishes to just have them in one place. So I will do that and send it over later today, inshallah.
Inshallah. Inshallah, if you have questions, go ahead and send them, because that's your session, inshallah, to clarify some of the, while you are preparing your questions, I have few pertains to the um, the issue of wiping on socks. So just to clarify the issue of wiping on socks, again, the confusion comes between two rulings that I want you to separate from each other. I'm going to give you an example because examples are the best way to clarify things. You have the separation between the rulings of wiping on socks and the rulings of invalidating your wudu. These are two separate rulings. So you wiped on your socks at Dhuhr prayer just now, and you prayed Dhuhr. And then you kept your wudu. Maybe in half an hour, you took off your socks. The second you take off your socks, now the validity of wiping on your socks stops. It has to be reset again. So if you take off your socks at, let's say, 3 o'clock, you still have your wudu. You did not do anything to invalidate your wudu. So your wudu is still intact. Taking off your socks has nothing to do with your wudu. Okay? So even if you wiped on your socks and you did not wash your feet, that's fine, because the second you wiped on your socks at Dhuhr prayer, you have a full wudu, fully intact, right? 3 o'clock, you did not lose your wudu, you just took off your socks. Ruling pertains to wiping on socks. You cannot wipe on socks except if you put them back on after fresh wudu. So again, let's continue the example. Your Dhuhr prayer is fine, and then at 3 o'clock you took off your socks. Your wudu is still fine. It does not touch your wudu. At 5 o'clock, Asr time comes in, and you want to pray Asr. You still have your wudu on, and you don't have your socks on. That's scenario number one. A question comes, can I pray Asr, but I took off my socks? The answer is yes. Taking off your socks does not invalidate your wudu. So you pray Asr, fine. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two, the same person who took off his or her socks at 3 o'clock, they decided to put them back on at 4:45 because of personal reasons. They just want to put them back on. They put them back on, but they did not lose wudu yet. Can they pray Asr? Yes, because wudu has nothing to do with taking off the socks. There's two separate rulings. Can they pray Asr? Yes, no problem, even if they have their socks on. And they have it on and off, it does not touch the wudu. Scenario number three, same person at 3 o'clock takes off his or her socks. At 4:30, and the person that took off their socks, they lose their wudu. At 4 o'clock, they lose their wudu. At 4:30, they look at the clock and they know that they're going to pray Asr at 5 o'clock. So out of conveniency, they put on their socks again so they can go, because they lost their wudu, they can go make wudu, and instead of washing their feet, they are going to wipe on the socks. So scenario number three, that does not work, because the person lost their wudu, and in order to go and get wudu, the wudu has to be full with washing feet again, because at 3 o'clock, when that person took off the socks, that action and the act basically invalidate the ruling of wiping. What if somebody wants to actually continue wiping with the same scenario? What's the ruling? What do they do? At 4:30, when they decide to go to the toilet or to the washing facility to make wudu, they make full wudu again and they wash their feet as usual. And then after they dry them up, they put on their socks. So now they enter Salatul Asr, they have full wudu and they have full reset counter for wiping on socks, another 24 hours because they just did it now freshly. So Asr is fine. And when Maghrib time comes, they are very absolutely fine. If they lost their wudu, they can still wipe on their socks because their socks was put on a fresh wudu at Asr prayer, which is all fine. This is what really confuses me and most people, and all the questions comes first. So I just wanted to clarify that, inshallah ta'ala, for you. So let me see, inshallah, if we have, I have, 1 second, inshallah. So I have a question saying Bismillah before changing clothes in a bedroom will prevent shaitan from seeing us. When entering bathroom, do we still need to say Bismillah to prevent them? Let me just continue. Do we still need to say the Bismillah, or is the bathroom dua sufficient for that? Sorry for the typo. So the question is, in general, our sunnah and the habit is in your bedroom, whenever you want to change your clothes, is to always say Bismillah. Bismillah blocks the view of the two creation from ins and jinn. Of course, from ins, that is ritually, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps that honestly no one, even if someone to, may Allah forbid, try to actually spy on that person or peek through in order to see the aura of that house or whatever, Allah would not allow that by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's a good sense of comfort that even if the house to be spied on or whatever, or somebody's trying to really infiltrate through the privacy of that home, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would block that. So that's a good thing, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. But the hadith was really mainly the hadith was more mainly for the other creation, and that is the jinn creation, the shayateen, that we do not see them, but they see us. So when we say Bismillah, we block their view. They don't see us anymore. So when we go to the bathroom, we say Bismillah, but before we enter. So as we extend our right foot to enter, we say Bismillah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubthi wal-khaba'ith. So that dua does include Bismillah in it. As we leave, we don't say Bismillah because we're leaving the bathroom and we're entering into a good area now. It's not considered to be an area where we are restricted from saying dua. So you're leaving to an area, actually going out from a restricted area to a non-restricted area. So that's why you don't say Bismillah and you just say Ghufranak, inshallah. I have a question that says regarding eating camel meat, nullifying wudu. Hanbali and the four rightly guided Khalifs agreed on this. If all four rightly guided agreed on this, why doesn't it have all the weight? How can the majority disagree with this? The four caliphs were companions of the Prophet ﷺ, not to argue, just wondering. That's a good question, and that just goes into the understanding of some of the usul of fiqh, how you derive the rulings. So the af'al, the actions of the Sahaba, are considered to be part of legislation. So you want to make sure that there is a huge distinction between the actions of Sahaba and between the actions of the generations that came after Sahaba. The one that came after Sahaba, no one takes as legislation. However, the actions of so we have the Quran, we have the Sunnah, we have the the ijma', which is like the ummah all agreed in consensus about a ruling, so that it can't go wrong. And then we have also, not that it is agreed upon, but some of the usul take the actions of the Sahaba as legislation. They say, well, the Sahaba will not say something or do something and claim that it's a sunnah unless they must have heard something from Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It is not reported, yes, it's not written, yes, but they must have heard something. They just can't come and say, well, it's the sunnah to do a couple of rak'ahs and whatever. They just can't say it from their own minds. With those who take the Sahaba as part of the usul, they take that legislation and they apply that rulings on. The others who consider only like the uh, the uh, the Quran, the Hadith, and the Ijma' and the actions of Sahaba is like highly source, but it's not a legislation source. That is, they do not have to take their actions or their opinions as a tashri'. That's one aspect of it, just to give you where how they derive the rules. The second aspect of it, a lot of the actions are looked at from the scholars, is that the actions of the four khalifas are righteous actions because of their connections to Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So a lot of time when they consist on when they consistently do something, they apply something in their life, they recommend something, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a must and you have to, but it could be that it's highly recommended. That's why when the majority don't see it, they still consider that to be a sunnah, but they are just looking at a ruling issue. Is it really a must or not? How did they differ? That's a good question, is because of these two aspects, and also because of something very important, is that depending on the ruling itself, sometimes if they did not receive the hadith that they can base their ruling on, and one school of thought would put, let's say the very first school of thought would put, it's an early school of thought and doesn't have as many collections of the hadith, so they put the ruling that it is such and such, not having enough other hadith that actually uh, brings the ruling up to a level where it is actually a must, but rather it's only maybe one or two hadith that stays still in a stage of recommendation. And the other schools comes to actually follow and just give the same opinion. And then you have later on the schools who have way more of collection of ahadith, like the school of the Hanabila, where Imam Ahmad had many more ahadith than the previous school of thoughts or schools of thought. So that also helps, when you have now many other ahadith that proves a point, it makes the Imam comfortable to say that's not really a recommendation. It's a must. You should really make wudu after you eat a camel meat. And of course, the students that come after that school adopts that opinion stronger. Why? Because they see it that it's based on many more stronger hadith. So that's like in a nutshell, of course, a glimpse of what the usul al-fiqh would come to offer you in order to make you understand why the opinions differ. Why it's like, if it's obvious to me, how could that not be obvious to the other scholars and what have you? And this is where you get to learn how things get derived and how the difference comes. And other saying and other hadith or other practices of the Sahaba says otherwise, and they would say, okay, well, we have something that says no, and actions that says yes. So this is where, in order to put them together, it says, okay, it means that it's more of a sunnah, it's highly recommended. It's not a must though, because if it's a must, then if you don't do it, then it becomes haram. And that's the level of what we call, usul al-fiqh, of where the fatwa gets derived from. Inshallah, I hope that this makes it a little bit clear for you. So the question is, I had a conversation with a friend about wudu and istinja. She has mentioned it is not mandatory to do istinja, but I thought it was. Can you further explain this? So when I covered the wudu, I did not. This is something that, inshallah ta'ala, I'm glad you mentioned it. I will look back at the book. I know that you're absolutely right. It's something that we did not mention in the slides, but I want to go back and read the book of how come it was not put at least under the Sunnah Act, like the recommended preferable act of actually cleansing the body, using the bathroom before any wudu. So yeah, your friend is correct in a shari per se that there is really no hadith or saying that actually mandates someone to actually go use the bathroom or do istinja and to wash their private parts before they actually do wudu. Whether they use the bathroom or not, they just need to go and wash their private parts before they actually perform wudu. So the Shafi'i school is very big on that. Shafi'i school does not allow that, and they would look really down on someone that would actually, to a point that some of the chapters of the school that actually makes it mandatory. I do not remember. I can't recall if that mandatory requirement is the overall adoption of the Shafi'i school, or if they have differed, whether it is mandatory or just highly recommended. But it's definitely something big within the Shafi'i school, is that it has to be something to precede the wudu itself, to just cleanse and clean the private parts before any wudu. So inshallah ta'ala, that's something that I will look and see if we can add that to the recommended, at least to mention it in the recommended acts. And if it's not in the book, then I will make a note of it, inshallah, for Imam Bayanuni to consider if they consider doing new additions, to add all the feedback that we would give him, because this is just first edition for this book. So inshallah, it helps that we have all this feedback, inshallah. So again, if you need to go, by all means, you can go, inshallah. If you can stick around with us, inshallah, alhamdulillah, that's great. My understanding is that if I'm traveling and stop at a public rest area, I can do wudu with wiping on my socks. I have put my socks on right after I did wudu when the travel was started. Is that correct? Yes. Yes, that is correct. If you put on your socks on a fresh wudu and then you started your travel and you stop at a restroom or a rest area, that is, to rest a little bit and also to refresh yourself and also to make wudu, to perform a salah or what have you, you can wipe on the socks, yes. And is it better to do this or wash my foot in the sink? Of course, it's always better to wash, because washing gives you more reward, because washing is like the full package. That's like the original. Wiping on the socks, it's more of a concession. It's just a makeup for that. Makes you skip that part of washing, allowing you to actually take a shortcut. It is absolutely Islamically legitimate, but it's not in the same level of reward, of course. But like being on travel and taking off your socks and putting your feet in the sink in a rest area where that might cause you not only some trouble, but also a lot of people would be looking at you. And, this is something that people in public would resent. Why are you putting your foot or your feet in the sink? This is something that's kind of gross to them. This is where they wash their face and their hands and whatever. And then you're putting your foot in the sink. So out of da'wah purposes, I highly recommend taking the concession of wiping over the socks. because that's not an area where you can explain to people of what you're doing. So that's something to consider, inshallah. Uh, I have another question. Does the reward for staying in one spot after Fajr till Shuruq and then praying Duha only pertain to praying Fajr in the masjid in Jama'ah? So the general ahadith basically reflect that this pertains only to the original Jama'ah that is conducted at the masjid. However, there is a good number of scholars, classical scholars from the past and the current scholars that consider the same exact reward happens to any sister, any woman, because the same musharra, the same legislator, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who gave that preference and that reward, high reward, of doing the salah of duha at the masjid after Salatul Fajr and staying that long until sun rises with a good amount of, to be risen in a good amount, like 15 minutes after it rises. And taking the big reward, the same legislator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, told our sisters, told the women of this nation, of this ummah, that you're praying at your home is better and it's righteous and it's good, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves it. To give break to the sisters because of the so many burden that they have. Just imagine if they had it to be mandatory, going through all the difficulties of pregnancy, having children and nursing and looking after their babies. And now they have to worry about also getting out and going to the masjid physically and taking or praying in Jama'ah. So I do personally adopt the opinion that says praying at home for sisters, give her the exact same high reward like any brother that would go to the masjid and stay after Fajr until sun rises. Because it's the same legislator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is high reward. This is how you get it. But for this gender of my servants, I want you to stay home. Then if she stays home and does what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in a reward, then she's going to get that reward. It's all about the intention. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told her to stay home, then she's staying home. She's following the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why she's getting reward for both. Not only for the high reward, but also for doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling her for your comfort. It is better for you to pray at home. Since we are in lockdown and can't access the masjid, do we need to pray in Jama'ah at home to avail? Oh, that's a question coming maybe from a male side or a female. No, I'm assuming a male. So I'm sorry. Let me see if it's the same question or not. Okay, it doesn't matter. Whoever the gender of the questioner, the answer is if it applies to many acts of worship that we have, and that is, if someone had the habit of praying at the masjid physically and praying Fajr at the masjid physically and doing their duha reward of staying after Fajr, not rushing out until sun rises, and then they would do their 2 rak'ahs of duha to get the reward, the equivalent reward as of performing Umrah and Hajj. If they had that habit, and the only thing that prevented them from continuing that habit is because of the lockdown, is because of the pandemic that we're going through, the answer is absolutely yes. And that's by consensus of all the scholars. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says that in the Quran. We talked about this in one of the Tuesday sessions. And also, Prophet Muhammad has clearly said that, those who had the habit to do something and got prevented because of sickness or because of any other necessities or something that beyond their control to stop them from that habit, then they would get the same reward. So that's very explicit. The one that had the habit would have the same reward, inshallah. But of course, it they do the same thing at home. So they pray Fajr, they wait until sun rises, and then just because of the lockdown. If it was the masajid were open, then they would do it at the masajid, inshallah. And if it's a sister, she can still do it at home without any lockdown and without any pandemic, as we answered just a few minutes before. Another question, this is a generic question on saying or making dua. Does it have to be out loud, or can it be without noise or like mouth, or can it be said in one's head? So you have all, it's all up to you. You have all the options. The only restriction, not restriction, I would say the only condition for the dhikr to have the reward is that we are asked to move our tongues and move our lips. So we are doing an action, actually, like exactly I'm talking to you. So as you move your tongue and you move your lips and you announce these wordings of dua, then you're all set. You get the reward. Whether you do it silent, like whispering, or silent, but you're still moving your tongue and your lips. Whether you're doing out loud, whether you do it in a very whispering way in between and what have you, that's all up to you, inshallah. A same question, and that is about tahajjud. Should it be out loud or quiet for women? That's your preference again. It is absolutely your preference. You can do it out loud and you can do it silent. The habit was more of out loud, but it's not a must at all. So if you prefer to be silent or not to be as out loud, then by all means you can. It's sunnah, but it's something that you have the preference to do whatever you want, inshallah, what makes you comfortable. But in general, the sunnah is to say it out loud in general. I have also another question. When using concessions for wudu or any other act of worship, we still get the full reward for doing the act of worship, even if the reward is greater if the concession was not taken. Yes. So the question is, we bring an example. One person wants to take the concession of making wiping, for example, over the socks. Is that person with the wiping over the socks would get the same reward as if they have conducted their wudu? The answer is absolutely yes. Full wudu, yes. Complete wudu, yes. From a reward point of view, absolutely. Because again, same legislator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who told us to wash our feet, is the same source that allowed us to bypass it this time because of certain conditions that we're going through. Same reward. Now, if someone were to come and says, which one will take extra reward, then yes, of course, if someone would take the effort of taking off their socks and washing it thoroughly and rubbing their skin and their toes, they would take extra points with no question, inshallah ta'ala. But as of the act of worship, same reward. Extra reward, that's always when you go the full way. So I think, so far, I think we got it. Let me see, just one more question. When a woman does prayer at home, when women do prayer at home, should she read? Oh no, that's single, not jama'ah. When a woman does prayer at home, should she read out loud for Fajr, Maghrib, and Isha out loud. So the general rule, saying out loud is sunnah. That's by consensus of all scholars. And this might come to be strange to you. Yani the question, if someone actually reads Fajr completely silent, if I come even as an imam in the masjid, at the masjid, and read Fajr completely silent, if the followers behind me, they know enough knowledge, they should not correct me. They should not say, Subhanallah, Subhanallah, trying, to bring to my attention, you're being silent. You need to speak out loud, whatever. If they know enough knowledge, they should not say that at all, because they know that, reciting out loud is just a sunnah. I might have an issue with my voice. I might feel extremely tired or something got into me, that, that prevented me from reading silent. So from reading out loud. So when I read silent, it's perfectly fine. So it's with consensus. Everybody agrees that out loud is a sunnah. It's an extra reward to that act of worship. So if a woman does her prayer at home, if there is a reason why she does not want to speak out loud in her recitation, then by all means she can do it silently if there is a reason. But if there is no reason, then by all means we should not skip any opportunity of high reward. So we should recite the Quran out loud for the ajr and the reward, and also remember for the imitation and copying of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, because he said, "Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli." So do pray like you see me pray. Just copy me in every act, in every move, in every whisper, in every dua, in every recitation. So that's like exactly what it means, copy. Just copy me. So try your best to imitate to the best of your ability. And that, if we know that he did it out loud, did not mandate it, but did it out loud, then by all means we want to follow his footsteps, unless I have a reason, of course. Inshallah, that I believe covers all the questions that you guys have this afternoon, inshallah ta'ala. So I'll let you go. Barakallah feekum. Inshallah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us life, I will connect with you again on Monday. We will continue the rulings on wiping, but we're done with shoes and socks and whatever. We're talking more on other fitters or outfits that we have, uniform things like that we cover our head with and what have you. And we will talk a little bit more on the wiping, on the cast also, if somebody really breaks his hand or foot, or what do they do and what have you. So inshallah, we'll talk more on the wiping. And if you have more questions, I know this subject really pertains to very, very related incidents that you go through your life and through your travel. So inshallah, get all those questions that you want me to answer on Monday, because we're continuing wiping rulings on Monday, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, barakallah feekum, inshallah. And we will see you, inshallah, on Monday. You have a great weekend. And inshallah, tomorrow, Friday, and Sunday also, we're going through our Ramadan fundraising. So please pass it on to all your friends and all your circles to come, inshallah ta'ala, and support your masjid and bring all these programs, inshallah ta'ala, to benefit to many others. Bi-idhnillah, jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.